All right, I'd like to call to order the December 20th meeting of the Tullahoma Planning Commission. We have a quorum. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If I could ask Mr. Rice to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, item 4 on our agenda is to read and approve the minutes of our last meeting, November 15th. And if you've done that, if I could get a motion.
Motion.
Motion to approve by Mr. Rice.
I'll second.
A second. All in favor of the minutes from November 15th, say aye.
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 All opposed? None. Okay, reports from officers and staff.
Thank you. Mary Samaniego for the record. Briefly, I think I was wondering if you'd be interested in next month's meeting being the first meeting for 2022. If I do a quick end-of-year report for 2021, review the number of rezonings we've had, how many subdivision lots we've created, and kind of plan for 2022 as far as our work schedule.
Yeah, I think that's a good review interview. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you need a motion for that? Or
No,
we're good to
I
go?
just,
Yeah,
I didn't want
let's
to go
plan
through
on
the
that for our next
exercise
meeting.
if you weren't interested in it, so. Okay, I'll present that during my staff presentation at the January meeting.
All right.
That's all
Sounds
I
good.
had.
Appreciate that. It's a good idea. There is no old business to cover. We're into new business. And we're into a public hearing. The first one on the board is the lakes at Ledford Mill. So I'll open the public hearing. And first, we'll get comments from the applicant for the lakes at Ledford Mill. Please state your name and your address.
Spencer Parton with Johnson & Associates, 701 North Cedar Street in Winchester. I'm here on behalf of Legacy Lake Homes. We are presenting a preliminary plat for a 102-acre subdivision, the smallest lot containing 0.28 acres. Total property contains 48.91 acres, and it's located on Ledford Mill Road. The developer is here, and we'll answer any questions you have the best we can.
Okay, okay. First, are any comments from the public regarding this subdivision preliminary plat? I see no comments from the public. Staff report on this one, please.
Okay,
Mary.
thank you. Production, can you please go to my PowerPoint? Thank you. One moment. It's out of order. No, something's wrong with the presentation. I apologize. I'll just do it verbally.
All right.
This is as the applicant said, this is a 48-acre site proposed for 100 lots. They are 100 residential lots with 2 lots being common area that will contain existing ponds that will be preliminarily used as retention. The property is zoned R1. It's at 330 Ledford Mill Road. Each lot meets the minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet per the zoning regulations. They are proposing a series of roads that will meet city road standards in anticipation of being dedicated to the public. For maintenance, they will be on city water and sewer. They will establish a homeowners association to maintain the common areas with the ponds. They will be installing sidewalks on one side of each street, as well as they have an alternative pedestrian trail leading through some of the lots to access a swimming pool and a pool house on one of the common areas as well as an added feature. They have a connectivity index of 1.5, which exceeds the minimum of 1.4. And other than that, there's no regulatory floodplain on the property. It's in the low-density residential designation of the comprehensive plan. There are no variances being requested. And the only condition of approval from staff is that a traffic study may be required with the construction plan phase because it's such a large development on Ledford Mill Road. Saying that, staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat.
Okay, thank you. I guess, are there any commission's questions for the developer at this point? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Second.
Okay, second, first motion is second. Discussion, any other questions or comments from the commission on this development?
I would have one question about the traffic study. The traffic study, I'm assuming, would not just consider this new subdivision, but the other subdivisions that are being planned for that area, so.
It would include all existing traffic as well as any traffic that, for entitled projects. So yes.
Okay.
The only thing that it might not capture, depending on the timing of when this construction plan comes in, is the Allen Howard townhome development, because that might not be entitled or approved at that time. So we're not, you have to know how many units you're dealing with before you can plug it into the traffic study.
In that we know that's coming,
Right.
it seems like the traffic study should include that.
Right. That's a very good point, thank you.
I did have a question. This Millstone Road that's on the western boundary, it seems awfully close to the property line to the west. Is that within our requirements? Is that adequate?
Yes. Yes, it can be up to the property line, and actually that is an existing right-of-way right now.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just point out that there's one additional comment that Mayor didn't mention, and that's the requirement for a 10-foot drainage ditch and utility easement along property lines. I assume we're including that as well.
As a staff comment? Yeah, that would be included as a staff comment, so yes, that's.
Thank you.
From planning, yeah. Well, if there's no other questions or comments on this, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of this preliminary plat, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Good luck with your development.
All right, y'all have a nice day.
Okay, our next public hearing is for the Stillwater Major Subdivision Preliminary Plat. If we could hear from the applicant on the Stillwater subdivision.
My name is Houston Smith. I'm here representing the entire Stillwater Properties Group. We're asking for preliminary plat approval on 62 single-family residential lots. There's one lot included in there to be 63, will be a common open space to encompass the mailbox and just some open area out at the, kind of at the front of the subdivision. Looking for two entrances off of Wilson Avenue. We've placed them in pretty good areas where we got lots of sight distance, so we shouldn't have any issues with TDOT. Good drainage on the site, utilities have been worked out. We've read through all the department staff comments. We have no objections to anything, so we just ask for your approval.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public regarding this subdivision? There is hardly any public here, so we're good on that.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't catch your name, and I didn't catch your location. Where are you from?
I'm from Clarksville. My name is Houston Smith. I'm from Clarksville, Tennessee, 113 Bostic Drive in Clarksville.
Clarksville. Welcome to Tullahoma. Thank you.
Are there, staff report on this one, please, Mary?
Yes. Okay, production, let's go to the PowerPoint again. Got it. Okay, this is the Stillwater subdivision. It's on 25.82 acres. They are proposing the creation of 62 single-family lots in the R1 zoning district. All of the proposed lots meet the 12,000 square foot minimum lot size as well as the 75-foot lot width. Subdivision will have new roads dedicated to the public. All of them meet city road standards. They have a connectivity index of 1.4, which meets the subdivision standards of a 1.4. Electric service and water and sewer will be provided by Tullahoma Utilities. The code requires a 5-foot sidewalk on one side of the road. The applicant is elected to put a 5-foot sidewalk on both sides of all interior streets. Typically, there would be a sidewalk along Wilson Avenue. However, it's staff understanding that there is a midterm project for potential widening of Wilson in this section. So as opposed to putting in a sidewalk, which would may include a widening of right-of-way, instead of putting a sidewalk on Wilson, the applicant has agreed to go ahead and just put sidewalks on both sides of all internal streets in lieu of putting a sidewalk on Wilson. I reviewed the transportation plan, the mobility plan, none of which, or neither of which, included any sidewalk proposal on this section of Wilson as far as our long-term plans. They will have detention that runs through the back of several of the lots, lots 1 through 4, and then 16 through 19, and maintenance of those will be through the homeowners association. There is no regulatory floodplain on the property, and lots 1 and then 25 through 37, which are all the southern lots, have a condition on the plat that says none of those lots can face nor can they have driveway access onto Wilson. All houses have to face and have driveways into the internal road system. So we're not facing with a lot of new driveway cuts onto Wilson, which is obviously a heavily trafficked road, and the applicant has agreed to that. There are just a couple of staff comments. There's a 2-inch gas main on the southeast quarter of the property that needs to be illustrated, and then there's a couple typos that need to be corrected on plat, as well as addition of the 10-foot drainage and utility easement note along all property lines. Saying that, staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat, subject to those comments in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary. So that'll close the public hearing, and if I could get a motion to move forward on this.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Mayor Noes,
Second.
and a second.
Subject to staff comments.
So any discussion, any questions or comments on this
Mr.
development?
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
My concern is about the fence that's to be along Wilson Avenue. You know, we've had a lot of talk in recent months about the entrance ways into Tullahoma and about how they need to be very attractive as our visitors come in to town. Wilson Avenue is probably the best one we've got, and I wouldn't want to mess it up. And I'm concerned, I agree with what Mayor said about the driveways coming into Wilson Avenue, and I think it's a good idea. But those backyards are going to be coming up to Wilson Avenue, and sometimes those are not very attractive.
Right.
And the fence may or may not be enough to take care of. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what that fence is going to really be and what kind of landscaping they may be proposing along that right-of-way beside the fence.
This is the first we're hearing about the, concerns about the fence. We knew that we would have a 6-foot privacy fence, but we haven't really had discussions about what it would look like, what it would be consisted of. It will be consistent across all of the houses, whatever material it is. But, if we need to have further conversations about what that particular fence needs to be out of, we're open to it. But there just hasn't been a lot of thought as to exactly how that fence would be constructed, because it hadn't really been brought up at this point. So if it's something that we need to discuss with the planning department, or iron out exactly how you guys want it to look, we can certainly meet those.
A fence can be anything from a spike fence to a very attractive stone fence, and with beautiful landscaping alongside. So I would just like to that, as I said, is one of our best entrance ways into the city. Very attractive compared to some of our other entrance ways. And I wouldn't want to mess that up.
I agree.
And I think we need to have something that's attractive and would be an enhancement to the beautification of Wilson Avenue, at least not a detraction.
Like I said, I agree with that. I'm not sure how we would, satisfy what you're asking for right now, other than we could, work with the planning department to get something that you would approve, just kind of throwing some ideas out there. But we do agree, we want it to be a nice fence. When we put something up in front of the subdivision, we don't want the whole thing to look ugly either. So, I mean, it would be beneficial for all parties for it to be an attractive fence. So, we definitely want to.
Do you, okay, may I ask a question? I understand what you're saying.
You're right.
Do you anticipate that it's going to be a privacy fence?
What we were thinking at the
Okay.
point would have been a white vinyl privacy 6-foot-tall fence.
Right, match the whole way down.
Mm-hmm, right.
Would any landscaping to make it more attractive?
Like I said, at this point, it had just been that discussion, but if we need to throw some trees and some landscaping in there, that's certainly something that we're up for, and we would, tackle that at the design phase.
Okay.
Is 6 foot high enough? I mean, do we need to specify 8, 10 feet, something a little more? Can we do that?
Be aware that any fence over 6 feet has additional engineering concerns as far as wind load.
Mr. Chairman, let me give an example of what Commissioner Comer's talking about. Some 60-plus years ago, as I was a student in Knoxville, Tennessee, at the University of Tennessee, I would commute from Lawrence County to Knoxville. I would come through Tullahoma. I would come through from Lynchburg to Manchester, coming through Manchester, coming through Tullahoma on that route. That was such a beautiful entrance to Tullahoma. I chose at that time, I said, I want to live in Tullahoma. That's a beautiful city. And it was because of that particular entrance to Tullahoma that attracted me to Tullahoma that long ago. So I appreciate comments to it. Yes, we want it to look good. We can't sit here tonight and design your fence.
Right, yeah.
Can't do that. But be very, very concerned about maintaining the quality of the entrance to Tullahoma.
And we agree. We certainly want to appease that. And, I've been a lot of subdivisions where you drive by and it's different type of fence, different color, and it does look terrible. So we do want the fence on the backside of this to look good. We do want to put a good product forward. So that is the intent, and we'll bring a design of a fence and maybe some landscaping before the board prior to.
Let me ask one more question, Mr. Chairman. In doing your development, do you have an example somewhere in Middle Tennessee or anywhere that would tell us what you might do there for that fence? Do you have some examples?
Off the top of my head, it's going to be hard for me to grab some, but I do have some that can be sent as to what we would be looking to do. Off the top of my head, it's kind of on the spot now.
And I will say that, Mary Samaniego, for the record, I will say that it is shown on the plat that at the two roadway entrances, they're going to have entrance signs, which those will be landscaped, as noted, it's indicated on the plat.
And thank you for doing internal driveways as opposed to Wilson Avenue.
Right.
Oh, definitely. Question?
Am I up? All right, first question for the developer there is that, back to the fence issue. What's the maintenance of the fence look like long-term? I mean, is that going to be something that's maintained by the property owner? I have no doubts that it'll look fine the first 5, maybe even 10 years. But after that, is there going to be a homeowners association that would keep that maintenance up, keep the landscaping up?
There
or
will be a
require that?
homeowners association. All that stuff is going to be on private property, so it'll have to be documented a little bit further that something on private property would be maintained by the entire subdivision that's more of a structure. I would have to look into if we could even do that.
Well, just hold them accountable is really
Right.
that it's going to match, and in 30 years, it's not going to look like it's not going to be dilapidated.
Yeah, I would anticipate they would be privately maintained. Not sure we can force anything other than that.
Okay. All right, and then next question for Mary, if it's still my turn. traffic study. What triggers a traffic study for this? Is there going to need I mean, you mentioned that there was going to be a widening project in the future, but like, are they going to need a left turn lane into this and stuff like that?
We're not at, there,
Okay.
TDOT isn't even, it's not even an official project at this point. It's just discussions at the TDOT level, so we don't even know what may or may not be required as far as decel or turn lanes or what it even might look like.
I just wonder, like, what, you know, if we were going to trigger a traffic study for the Ledford Mill one, you know, why not this one? It would seem like it would be a heavily trafficked road at like, I think 55 miles an hour?
It's 55 there. yeah.
Scott, do you want to address this?
Okay, so TDOT, they have to submit their entrance permits to TDOT as a part of their regular construction plans. And TDOT will determine if this is all laid out in the TDOT new driveway manual by TDOT, if a traffic study has to be performed or not. So TDOT will be working directly with the developer on that, and they'll mandate that the traffic study, because they've got two proposed entrances, it's a function of the length of the highway there. So, you know, that's the reason that we did not specify for an independent traffic study to be done, because TDOT will review all of that in accordance with their guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I guess a question of process, Ms. Samaniego. How, we have some questions about the fence. How do we move forward with that and get a final approval for that?
Typically, the planning commission, when a subdivision is brought forward, as long as the subdivision meets the standards of the subdivision regulations, it should be approved. You
Okay.
can certainly ask for commitments from the applicant or developer for added features, but you would have to make an argument as far as public health, safety, and welfare to justify a condition of fencing, materials, and landscaping.
So would that be added as a, if we stated something like that, would that be stated, we approve it, but we have some concerns as far as adding it into the minutes?
You could say recommendation, and you would have to specify exactly what materials you wanted, or if you wanted to leave it up to staff, or how you wanted that to play out, but it would have to be very clear. If you wanted to require something that's not a standard subdivision regulation, then you would have to kind of establish the findings of fact for that requirement, saying we want a certain kind of fencing because we're concerned about traffic coming into the city and safety, and there has to be some sort of justification. It's standard kind of subdivision law in an effort to protect property owners from coming forward, and they have a certain expectation, and they met a certain level of standards, and then they come to the planning commission, and then they're hit with all these other conditions. Those conditions have to be tied back to either a plan or a study or something in a code.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So more of a recommendation.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we can bind the property owner to have standards outside of the restrictions.
I agree. I have a question regarding stormwater. The whole eastern side of the property kind of slopes to the east pretty significantly, and I'm familiar with that church, to the east. Can you describe how this retention pond, how stormwater will be managed both in construction phase and then in final stage?
Okay. Yeah. The majority, well, the site just kind of rolls off in every direction, a little bit going to the church, most of it kind of going all the way back to the, let's just call it the low area in the back. There's not really anything back
Yeah.
there. So what we're planning on doing is capturing all of the water, at least within the roads and on the internal area. All of that's going to be routed to one of the two stormwater detention basins on the east and the west side, which will discharge to the north. So we're going to carry a lot of the existing water that's going to the church and going to that little ditch that's kind of between us and the church. We're going to catch a lot of that and just take it to the back and deal with it in the back.
Okay.
So the church is going to see a significant decrease in the amount of water that's going to that little spot behind it.
Soil.
Yeah.
It's basically a little wetland back there, yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds like an improvement for the church then.
Yeah, we think so.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions or comments for the developer or for staff on this project? Okay, well, I will I will call for a vote then. All in favor of this development, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the next public hearing for the Kalo minor subdivision. Can we hear from the applicant for the Kalo minor subdivision, please? Please state your name and your address.
I'm Chris Bateman, 521 Woosley Road, Tullahoma. I'm the land surveyor on this piece of property.
I guess can we, okay, any questions? Any questions for this gentleman at this point? It's pretty basic setup here. Let's go ahead and hear. Any comments from the public on this proposed plat change here? No comments? Staff report, please.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is a Kalo minor subdivision. He is proposing to create 4 lots on an existing 5-acre property. It is in the urban growth boundary of Coffee County unincorporated limits. The current zoning is RS1. Here are the proposed lots. It meets all of the minimum lot size standards for the Coffee County zoning district of RS1. I did send this over to the Coffee County Planning Department, and they did review it, and they have some comments for minor corrections after approval and prior to plat signatures. Each lot will be on septic. Septic fields have been reviewed and preliminary approved through TDEC. All lots will have access onto Powell Road. There is 1 flag lot, Lot 4, and that meets the standards for flag lot. Other than that, it's just a standard subdivision. There are some changes, basically cleaning up some typos and some notes.
Okay.
Found on page 30 of the staff report from the planning department, and again, some minor changes from the Coffee County Planning Department. Saying that, there are no variance requests, so staff is recommending approval with those staff comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I'll close public hearing and entertain a motion on this plat change.
Move to approve, staff comments.
Thank you. And a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Any discussion on this final plat?
Mary, did you say we had TDEC approval for this?
Yes.
Okay.
For septic? Okay, if there's no other comments, all in favor of this final plat, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay,
That's
it
it.
passed unanimously. Good luck with your development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you going to send me those comments?
I will. I'll send them to you in the morning.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next up is the Whitley minor subdivision. Plan to create 2 lots from existing 9.9 acres. Do we have the applicant? We do.
Yes, sir.
Welcome.
Welcome. Name is Thomas Whitley, 1376 Panhandle Road, Manchester. Requesting to split a 9.9 acre tract into 2 lots off of Deer Creek Lane, easement off of Jean Drive.
Okay, any comments from the public on this proposed development? None? Staff report, please.
Thank you. This is the 2-lot Whitley subdivision. It's at 144 Deer Creek Lane. Now we are in the Franklin County urban growth boundary. Each of the 2 lots meet the minimum lot size for the agricultural zoning district of Franklin County. I did send this plat for review over to the Winchester/Franklin County Planning Office, and she did review it and recommended approval that it meets all of her zoning codes for that district. One of the conditions of the Franklin County zoning regulations is that Deer Creek Lane is now a private drive. They require a secondary access to a county-maintained road. So the developer has provided the required 30-foot access easement down to Jean Drive. This has been approved preliminarily for septic fields from TDEC. And public water will be from Tullahoma. Electric service will be from Duck River. The nearest fire hydrant is 250 feet away, but they are on the volunteer fire department. And then the only variance request with this application is access to a publicly or privately maintained easement. The applicant actually owns that entire right-of-way, Deer Creek Lane. Typically, the subdivision regulations allow for access to a private road, but it must be built to city road standards. This road has been, is almost complete to city road standards. It has the correct width, the correct right-of-way width. It has the base layer and the secondary layer. It just does not have the top layer installed yet. Because of that, and they also have a secondary access easement to Jean Drive, staff is recommending approval of the variance for access to a road to city road standards. The applicant has further property to the east that he plans on developing, and at that point, I've put him on notice that at that point, the entire road needs to have the final coat of asphalt put on it and meet city road standards. Saying that, staff has some minor changes between first and second reading, between approval and signature. From the fire department, some comments about the proximity to the North Franklin County Fire Department. Some changes for the signatures for TUA. And then that was it. Franklin County recommended approval. So staff's recommendation is to approve the final plat subject to all staff comments and based on the finding of fact for the variance request to section 1-13.106.
All right, very good. Well, that closes our public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve this plat change?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Thank you.
Second, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Any discussion, any further discussion or questions on this proposed
I
development?
have a question. Will that road remain a private road?
That's a question for the applicant.
So my intention is to maintain it as a private road, and initially for the next build I do, and then I've got money tied up in the road, and if I just hand it over to the county, well, I'm just giving whoever develops at that point, whatever I invested in the property is on to whoever takes it, you know.
And at
So,
that time, the county would have to accept it and meet their standards, correct?
yeah, well, for me to do what we're talking
Yeah.
about, the next build, it has to be accepted at that point. It's just, at that point, it's gonna be, do I maintain it myself, or do I give it over to the county? That would be the only difference.
So, but at this point, it's gonna be a private road.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
What do we need to do to bind that restriction, like what you had said in your report? You basically said that when he develops the property to the east, that he'll be bound to properly finishing the road. Is there a note or an amendment that we need to do on this? Okay.
Not on this project. I didn't want to go into all the details at this point, but the property that he owns further to the east doesn't have that secondary required access to Jean Drive, so he would almost have, in order to further subdivide that property, he would have to bring this road up to standards. He doesn't have an alternative means or alternative route to a publicly maintained road.
Okay.
The only reason why I felt comfortable at this point is because, like I said, he does have a secondary driveway option to Jean Drive.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this development? Okay, if I see none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of this, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, passes unanimously. Well, good luck with your development, Mr.
Thank you, sir.
Whitley.
Thank you.
I see number 5 on our agenda has been postponed till next month, so our 6th item is the Angular minor subdivision plot. If we could hear from the applicant. Welcome. Please state your name and address, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Marcelo Aguilar. I live in Manchester, but the plat that I'm trying to rezone is 702 South Atlantic Street. I mean, Southwest Atlantic.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from the public on this proposed development? I've seen none. Staff report, please.
Thank you. Aguilar minor subdivision. As the applicant stated, this is at 702 South Atlantic Street, catty corner from Fire Station Number 1, just a block off of Carroll, and to the east is a railroad track. The applicant is, there's currently an existing house on the property. The applicant is proposing a smaller lot with the existing house and then creating 2 new lots for development for single-family residential. Some of you may remember this site several months ago. They came before us with a rezoning. They had been zoned C2, general commercial, which does not allow single-family development. They requested and were approved ultimately by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen a rezoning to C3, which allows for commercial development, but it also allows for that single-family development option. So it's our one and only mixed-use zoning district. All of the minimum lot size standards have been met by the applicant, as well as potential driveway locations. They will be on city sewer and water, as well as TUA electric. The existing house on Lot 1 meets the setbacks for the newly created internal lot lines. Saying that, there are some minor changes after the approval, subject to the Planning Commission's motion. There's some clarification of the language for the sewer service, as well as some minor changes to some of the notes on the plat. So saying that, this application has no variances, so staff is recommending approval of the final plat, subject to staff comments. Thank you.
Okay, well, that closes our public hearing. If I could get a motion to approve this?
Move to approve.
Mr. Comer?
Second.
Second by our mayor. Thank you. Any discussion on this proposed final plat? See no discussion. It could get loud there, right next to the fire department, right?
Yes.
Some periods of that, but,
The insurance might be low, though.
very true. There you go.
That would help.
Walk on over, yeah. That could be a nice discount. Okay, all in favor of this final plat, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay? Passes unanimously. All right, congratulations and good luck with your development there.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay, that ends all our new business. Other new business. Mary, I believe you're going to talk through our upcoming schedule?
Yes, one moment.
Okay.
That's okay, we're not done yet. Okay, I'll call you tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Yes, I need a motion to approve the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals calendars for 2022.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, or any discussion on the proposed schedule? No discussion, I'll call for a vote. All to approve the upcoming schedule, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Passes, all right. Just basically the third Monday of each month. Good deal.
Except for next month.
What?
Except for next month.
Except for next month. All right, on to the third item of other new business. We're going to have a tree board presentation tonight by Mr. Ralph Graham. Welcome, Ralph.
Thank you for this opportunity. This is my first experience before the planning commission, so my name is Ralph Graham, 205 Lakewood Drive, Tullahoma, Tennessee. I'm chairman of the tree board, have been so since 2011. And I'm here today to start a conversation about trees in Tullahoma and our concerns about them and issues. And so if you would move on. Several issues that you have nothing to do with, but I want you to be aware of what we're facing. So this is the conversation again. We have a controversy over who takes care of the trees once we plant them. Does Public Works do it? Do they water the new trees when we put them down in the city? Or does plans and, the Parks and Recreation, or a little of both? And this is not a minor consideration, because once you plant the tree, it has to be watered for at least 2 years afterwards. And that's the main reason of trees dying. So again, this is something for the city to think about. And Mayor, I'm glad you're here. This is an issue for us. And I really don't know where to go from here. We talk about it in our board meetings and say, what do we do about this? How do we get this thing resolved? Who's in charge? Over? So it's an issue. Let's go on to the next one, please. I think Tullahoma 2040 is a major step you're making here, and it has to do with trees. And we're so pleased that the Planning Commission and the study supervisor has seen fit to think of trees as an important asset to Tullahoma in 2040 and from now until then. And I would like to thank you for doing this, and would like to be part of this process. We offer the tree board to, I've come to some of the public meetings, but as a planning facility, we might come and support you, and so I offer that to you. And some of the things you might address is location, where we've talked about the streetscaping initiative, which was recently done, and that was focusing mainly on North Jackson Street, as you know. But there are other areas in the town, for instance, Cedar Lane, that could use trees, and we're looking for ways to increase the canopy. And several years ago, we did a study about how many, what percentage of the total of the city is covered with trees, and it was 37% at that time. That's about maybe 5 years ago, I think. And that's certainly respectable, but I think we can do better. And that's one of the goals that we have, is increase the canopy. And this comprehensive plan could address this particular issue. And then there, again, there's a funding for it. When you have a large group of trees put in, how does the city pay for this kind of thing? Do you have a mass planting? Do you get volunteer work? What kind of trees do you put in? All of this is something that the tree board stands ready to help with. And then finally, the maintenance is a never-ending issue. When we get grants, for instance, from the Tennessee Agricultural Enhancement Program, as we've done for the Arboretum we have here, we have to take care of these trees and water them. And that, again, this controversy about who's in charge of Parks and Recreation, that is a part. But the Parks and Recreation has been doing that. And this is an example of, you don't just plant them and forget them. So please have that as part of your plan, that there's the maintenance trail. You hear about it for these subdivisions. You're going to hear about this too. Next chart, please. I have studied as much as I can, and Mayor, you're going to have to help me with this, because I'm not aware of commercial developments being required to plant trees. I do know that there is the landscaping requirement, which is that you have, for every 100 feet of perimeter of the lot, that you have to have one tree. I'm thinking in terms of, do you have a requirement for a commercial development to take care of existing trees and also to add other trees to this? I did some study about Nashville and Murfreesboro's policies, and they have a much more stringent requirement. That is, rather than one tree for every 100 foot of perimeter, it varies. In Murfreesboro, it's one for every 50 feet, and in some areas in Nashville, it's 30 feet to 50 feet. But it's certainly more trees than we're doing right now. And so I'm making an appeal that we amend that part of the landscape ordinance, which is one tree for every 100 foot of perimeter. And this is, again, this is a conversation I'm having. I haven't gone through and made a proposal and given you the proposed write-up and all that. I just want to start the conversation. And Nashville and Murfreesboro are very clear with respect to who is responsible for taking care of these trees once they're planted. It's on city property, but the owners of the property are required to maintain these trees. And I think that's a consideration we need to make here too. So, next. I saw the thing that you gave me, Mary, with respect to subdivision development. It said basically that you cannot go in and clear cut the subdivision plat, that you'll have to, for every 6-inch caliber tree, you have to preserve it and put it on the plat and show this and protect it. But I've seen nothing like that for commercial development. For instance, when Publix came in, they wiped out several massive 100-year-old oak trees, and we have a parking lot now. And nothing was done to protect these trees. And so I'm asking that if there is nothing with respect to commercial development for trees, that you consider that, amending your zoning requirements, and don't let that happen. I'm sounding like a tree hugger, I know, but when you see something like that, you don't just plant a little tree there. You know, you've lost it forever. And I don't want to mention too, something that I'm really thankful for is that when the Ascend Federal Credit Union built their new property, they preserved existing trees and preserved water spaces and put in other trees. It was an enormous, as I remember, there were over 60 trees they preserved in that. So this kind of thing, they did it on their own. They weren't mandated to do so. So I'm appealing to this commission to think of ways to preserve our heritage trees and our woodlands and not clear cut them. We're concerned about the trees going away. I saw a picture of 1951 when President Truman came here for the dedication of AEDC. The streets were lined with beautiful shade trees. That time is gone. We've widened the streets. We've taken them out. Trees have died. We're having pests and disease attack our trees. For instance, the emerald ash borer will kill all of the ash trees we have in this city. I did a survey of them, and I found, as I recall, 50 of them on city property. Those will be gone. So we need to think about this. And then there are trees that have to be taken down for a public hazard standpoint, dropping limbs on major highways. Hazardous trees have to be taken out. And then, of course, the street widening, commercial development. And then we have people who get their chainsaws out and cut down a city tree. And we had that just recently on Polk Street. I can't believe it, but they did it. And they have to replace them. But how do you replace a mature tree with a little sapling like that? So the trees are going away in the city. So finally, let's move on to the last chart here. The recommendations I'm putting before you, not in a formal way, but just as a conversation, is that we need, as a city, to find out who's responsible for caring for our trees and make it clear. And then we specify areas and density of trees in the 2040 plan. They just say it'd be a good idea to have more trees here. But just actually go out and find areas that would be enhanced with this, and the tree board stands ready to help in this planting. And then I do ask that we revise the landscaping ordinance to do 1 tree for every 50 feet of lot perimeter. And I can't make a motion, I mean, I'm not part of this, but I do, I see a clear need to get up to standards of our sister cities. And then amend the code against clear coating to include commercial. And may I ask you this, Mary, do you know of something that's like the residential thing that you cannot clear cut commercial developments? Do we have that?
I'm not aware of anything like that in our existing code.
Okay, thank you. So I do think that's an issue for the board, or for the commission. And then finally, and this is for the tree board, we have it in our ordinance. The tree ordinance says when a tree is removed because of widening of the street, it needs to be replaced. It's not being done. So we have an issue here too. So I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you and to tell you some things that the tree board is considering, and would like to hear from you. And you're all invited to our meetings. We've had Paul visited with us, and Mary's come several times. So I'd like to establish a rapport between us, and let's have a conversation. That's all I had today, and I thank you for this opportunity to talk with you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Graham. Yeah, I just have a quick question for you. You mentioned that our current canopy is 37% in the city limits. What would be an idea of a goal for the tree, from the tree board for a percent canopy?
At one time, Nashville had 40%. I think we could go for 40%. You know, it gets rid of, you have parking areas, you can put parking trees and islands. We're not doing that now. We just have, think about the recent Publix. There we have 1 or 2 trees out there, but in general, we don't have island trees to the extent they do in Nashville. They have, I think, 15 feet wide and maybe 50 feet long islands, and they put a tree in there and landscape it. We could do that. So that would improve our canopy. Encouraging citizens to plant trees would increase that. And then certainly adding to the city property and putting trees in our parks. And I have one other thought here for you. Nashville just signed into law a requirement that they have street trees as well as landscaping trees in addition to. So you have the curb, 6-foot grass area and the sidewalk. You plant trees, street trees right there in between. And they're starting to require this now in the city. And in addition to what we do, 1 tree for every 100-foot perimeter. Kind of innovative, I think, and they're doing it right. It's in law right now. So that's all I had.
Okay, well, thank you for your time and initiating the dialogue.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
I see no other items on our agenda, so I'm going to have a call for a motion to adjourn. We don't need a motion to adjourn. I can just get to adjourn. All right, adjourning our planning commission tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.